From haunted houses to cursed artifacts, from whispers in the dark to battles you'll never read in scripture. This is the Unholy podcast, hosted by Doug Owen, author, investigator, and survivor of one of the most harrowing real-life hauntings ever documented. Each week, Doug pulls back the veil between this world and the next, sharing stories that aren't fiction, because he lived them. Prepare yourself. The silence is over.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Unholy podcast. I'm your host, Doug Owen, and tonight we're joined by the team behind the Ghost Investigators, a paranormal investigation group dedicated to documenting real paranormal activity without staged reactions, manufactured drama, or overproduced television theatrics. Joining us tonight are Steve Mason, retired Army veteran and co-founder of the team, Keith Snyder, Army veteran and investigator, and Bryan Conyers, cameraman, editor, and the man responsible for capturing and presenting their investigation evidence exactly as it happened. Now, their mission is simple: investigate haunted and historic locations, capture evidence, present it honestly, let viewers decide for themselves. Tonight, we're going to discuss their backgrounds, their most compelling investigations, shadow figures, intelligent spirit communication, evidence review, skepticism, and what they've encountered that continues to challenge their understanding of the paranormal. Gentlemen, welcome to the Unholy podcast.
Thanks for having us. Great intro.
Thanks, Doug.
My pleasure. All right, let's head to it. Steve, let's begin with you. What first sparked your interest in the paranormal, and what eventually led to the creation of the Ghost Investigators?
So it's actually, I think it's a funny story. So I did 20 years in the military and I was gone constantly. And so I have 4 children, and every time that my wife was pregnant, I always felt like when I'm home, I have to be the best version of a husband that I can be and supportive. So, in the middle of the night when she would wake up to breastfeed, I didn't want to just be the dad sleeping there, so I'd just wake up just to scratch her back or something. And at like 2 o'clock in the morning, the only thing it's on is Ghost Adventures. So that it was season 1 of Ghost Adventures. I remember it coming on, and I was just like, "Oh man, this is freaking awesome." And then I just kind of continued watching it, and it became I think everyone started out on Ghost Adventures, for at least in my age group. And so I kind of, started getting into that, and then I started getting a little bit more curious about other stuff. So I started looking up, other ghost shows and stuff. And then one of my friends said, "Hey, we should go. We should try go ghost hunting." And I bought a digital recorder from Walmart, and we went to a basement of this old abandoned house, and we did an EVP session. There was 2 of us, and there was 3 voices on the recorder, and I was like, sold. I'm all in. I have this brain where I have to overanalyze and figure out every problem. Maybe that's the military side of me, but that's kind of how my journey started.
Nice. That sounds amazing. And a lot of people start the same way. So, Keith, what was your own journey into the paranormal?
Personally, I've always had an interest in the paranormal, anything unexplained, whether it was paranormal related, cryptozoology, or UFOs. And then I had a few experiences myself, and the very last one was so overpowering, which my wife and daughter, they did not experience what I did, but they saw my reaction. And I remember a few days later, I asked my wife, "Would you mind if I just explore the paranormal?" And she said, "Honey, you do whatever you want." And we are married to this day. I love her more than anything. But even my daughter, during this, the most powerful experience I ever had in my life, I asked her, I said, did you experience anything? And she said, no. And she looked at me, Dad, did you? And I said, yeah, I did. And she was so disappointed. And, you know, my daughter is just so open-minded, and she's studying forensic psychology. So she's very, very, very smart. And that was the final push for me to just actually investigate this, because I knew this was real. I mean, paranormal activity is real. There's no doubt about it in my mind. And so that's really, Doug, what pushed me down this path.
Nice. That's an amazing story. That's great. So, Bryan, you're the guy behind the camera. What drew you into this field, and how has reviewing hundreds of hours of footage changed your perception on the paranormal?
Well, luckily these guys actually do help out quite a bit with the review and going through everything, so it's only like 95 hours I have to go through. But my journey is actually like completely backwards from the two of them. I'm going to contradict with what Steve said and say my first introduction to like the watching this sort of thing was actually the Ghost Investigators. My background's in film and TV by trade, and you know, by happenstance, these guys were looking for somebody to help them out, and I basically answered, you know, like a newspaper call about it, and joined them on my first investigation to the Doss house, which was just such an unbelievable experience for me. I've never done anything like that before, and it pretty much immediately got me hooked. And I've just been enjoying just chasing the ghosts ever since. It's been just too much fun not to do.
Nice. Nice. So when did the three of you realize that you worked really well together as an investigative team? Was there a case or something that cemented that partnership?
I think for me, this is like kind of a really, you know, crazy story in itself. So the way that I met Keith is, so I'm a veteran representative for the state of Pennsylvania, and there's only a handful of them, and they only open up every 20 years because people keep them. And I retired on December 1st 2 years ago, and that position opened up on December 4th, and I got the position. And the office that I ended up working with had no idea, of course, that Keith's sister worked there, and I saw that she had a picture of Trans Allegheny on her board, and I was like, why do you have that picture? And she was like, oh, my brother's a big time ghost hunter. And I was like, hey, well, I don't really know anybody. I just moved here, like 2 years ago. I'm looking for someone to ghost hunt with, and I gave her my number to give to Keith. And then a couple weeks later, he called me up and was like, hey, man, you want to try ghost hunting? And we went to a haunted Clifton 5 movie theater is what it's called. And we didn't experience really anything much that night, but we were so in sync and on the same wavelength because we talked about all of our beliefs on the way there. And like, it was almost like the Step Brothers thing. Yeah, it was like, do we just become best friends? Yeah.
Nice.
And then the whole night, like, I think that's kind of our niche is that and this isn't like a flex or anything, but like we don't seem to scare very easily, and so when something happens, we don't have this like crazy over the top a reaction to it, and I think that maybe sometimes that's the downfall in the entertainment world, but we're more like why did that happen? Let's go figure that out first before we start freaking out and saying it's paranormal. So that's kind of the day that I knew, like, oh man, this is maybe a partner.
Okay. And you just gelled from that point on, and here you are. History.
Oh,
nice.
Yeah.
So many paranormal teams out there now with all of the influx of TikTok and everything. So a lot of these places and people, they claim authenticity. What does no gimmicks actually mean in practice for the ghost investigators?
I can take that one too. So sure. I think that the gimmicky stuff is that if you watch any paranormal show, mainly on YouTube right now, I think it's a lot of, early to mid 20-year-olds, and they're running around with anything that they can buy on the internet that says ghost on it. And they just take it at face value. And if it lights up, they're just like, hey, this has to be paranormal because it's lighting up. And I say the same thing all the time. Like, I'm not an electrical engineer. I don't actually know how a lot of this stuff works, but I do know if I knock on something and it knocks back, or if I say to open that door and the door opens, like I can't prove that stuff. So that's where we get like the no gimmicky from. Like we disprove a lot of our stuff in our shows all the time. Like we found out, we were using REM pods and we were using walkie talkies. We called each other in the walkie talkies. The REM pods went off. We're like, all right, well, REM pods are full of shit.
Right.
So
even cell phones, Doug. Cell phones will set off and trigger REM pods as well. And while we were disappointed, the whole no gimmicky thing, and we hate to use that debunking, it just became so popular in this one show, which I'm sure everybody knows what we're talking about. But from a scientific perspective, we're not electrical engineers, physicists, engineers, anything like that. But I have a huge background in the building trades, working, digging foundations, anything like that. And there are so many variables that come in to an old house or even a new house if it wasn't properly set. There are just so many variables and I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
Like, he'll call out electrical stuff. He'll be like, "Oh, this house actually has tube electrical, which actually, emits a little bit more electricity because it's not."
Yes.
So that's sure. He's very valuable in that asset.
And then Doug, you get into the basic, and you don't have to be an electrical engineer or anything, but high EMF fields have been debated for years that it can cause people are surrounded by that to have paranoia, feeling like they're being watched, delusion. And I actually had an old Sony alarm clock that was like a foot away from my head. And I told my wife, I said, something's going on because I didn't know if maybe something followed me, if you get my drift. I finally unplugged this thing and then plugged it back in, took one of my meters over, and that thing was spiking off the chart. I unplugged it, and that night I slept like a baby. So there is some scientific validity to these claims, like, hey, it can affect some people in really negative ways, not being paranormal in any way, shape, or form. So I think with what Steve threw in and then what I'm trying to explain, that's where it's no gimmicks. I mean, if we can disprove something, we will do it. It's disappointing when we think we captured something great, but it's also validating, like, hey, people can see us and say they know we're honest and real.
Yeah. Next question here. Have you guys ever captured something so unusual that even the three of you disagreed on what it might be?
No, I think that we've captured some pretty unusual things, but I think that the three of us coming together and looking everything from a logical standpoint, I think that we're more than not, we come to the same conclusion of what we think that it could have been. Whether, we've caught stuff that we think is the textbook example of stone tape theory, catching an apparition forming, taking a couple steps forward, repeating that exact same movement, exact same placement an hour later, all on camera, static camera. And, we go through the motions of trying to figure out what it is. And I think, we kind of all land on that's weird, but maybe,
Mm-hmm.
No, that's great. That's great. You guys seem to be a pretty solidified, unified team, which is really unusual. It's great.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Doug, to interrupt. Yeah, we are, because we're not afraid to throw something out. Bryan could throw something out like, hey, what do you guys think about this? And none of us are so arrogant or, just like, oh, you're crazy, I know what I saw. No, that's the philosophy we have during our investigations, where it's like, okay, I just know I heard something. And again, when you get into it from the psychological perspective, I don't throw out what I heard. Steve doesn't. Bryan doesn't. It's like, did you guys hear what I just heard? And if we say, no, what do you hear? Okay, that's great. You know, Bryan just heard something audibly with his own ears, and he's adamant about it. We don't put out suggestions. I think one of the best captures we ever had was during the Great Mishmash episode, when literally I didn't feel threatened or scared, but there was something behind me, and I even made a comment like, I feel like somebody's playing peekaboo or whatever I said. And you can clearly see a figure kind of stopping and then moving like a misty figure. It was weird. But that's, I believe, why I love investigating with these guys, is because somebody can throw something out and we do it respectfully. Like, well, Bryan, are you sure it wasn't a reflection? Or Keith, did maybe, you know, and we validate this. And the most disappointing thing to me personally is that sometimes it seems on these investigations like an entity, a spirit, an energy, whatever, will specifically target one of us, where one person is 100% sure they heard or saw something, and you know, the other two are like, I didn't hear or see anything. But we don't ridicule each other. It's totally respect based. And it goes back, I think, Steve, to the whole military. It's like, if one of your battle buddies hears something or sees something, you listen to what they said, because maybe they picked something up you didn't even capture.
We also self-validate it too, because a lot of times, you know, on an investigation, you know, Keith will say, hey, I heard something, and maybe we didn't hear it, but then when we go back and we do our evidence review, I'll be damned if what he said he heard is not on the audio. It's crazy. And he actually really undersold that mist figure thing that he was just talking about. He was sitting down in this old like coal chute in this basement, and he looked into the camera in the hallways like behind him, and he was like, man, I feel like something is spying on me. And as soon as he says that, this like absolutely unmistakable mist figure pops out of the corner, and then as soon as Keith turns around, it darts back. Like, he called it happened. You know, so and he was telling us when he got upstairs, like, man, something felt like it was watching me. And then we reviewed the footage, we're like, god dang, dude.
Yeah.
But I think Doug, and I promise I'll shut up. I'm just kind of talking.
You're good. Continue. No, absolutely.
From this heat exhaustion from the heat in central Pennsylvania, I'm telling you, it's crazy. But we trust each other. We trust each other's judgments. We respect each other. We like each other. And it's not like a glamour show like, well, wait, you had 2 more minutes on the camera than I did. You know, we care less than shit about that. We're doing what we love to do. We're having fun, and we want to just make people understand that we're totally truthful and honest, and people can take it from there.
Nice. So let me ask you, Bryan, when you enter a reportedly haunted location, what are the first things that you look for before you even unpack the equipment out of the bag?
For me, you know, I've only been in a couple of really reportedly haunted locations. Some of them have been more folklore, or you know, we do a lot of work in a small town, so a lot of it is word of mouth. You know, everyone talks about how this place is haunted. But so when you're talking about the big, like, really reportedly haunted places, I don't even know that I do look for something so much as I'm like, yeah, this place looks haunted for sure. You know, sort of the first one I did with these guys was like that. It was this building called the Doss House, which is famous in this area of Pennsylvania, and it was unsettling just to walk into. I mean, and it was the size of the office I'm in now. Like, it was a tiny building, but you walked in there, it was like, oh yeah, something. I don't know that something is here walking into it, but walking into it's like, I have a feeling we're gonna have a fun night tonight. So yeah, that's kind of.
Okay.
Yeah. Keith and I have been doing this long enough that I believe that we have, you know, kind of put our bodies in tune with the atmosphere, and we walk in the building, and probably within the first 2 minutes, we, you know, look at each other and we say, "Do you feel anything?" And you know, it's and 9 times out of 10, if he says yes, I'm also feeling the same thing, and you know, it goes the other way, like, man, I don't really feel anything. But you know, that never means that nothing is gonna happen, because in my opinion, the paranormal, it comes in waves. Like, you get spikes of it and it just goes away. But I could get into that. I think it's actually like interdimensional and can come and go. But
yeah, I should have said that was my answer. Actually, it was just I look to them and see what, because they're so in tune like that. It's crazy. We walk in place and you know right off the bat from them.
Bryan, in your defense, though, when we did that local community center, I mean, you were picking up on things, and I was like, okay. I just really think, Doug, that the longer you do this, you get so trained and in tune with your environment, and that's why I have a lot of problem with psychics and empaths, because it's like, especially with empaths, because it's like, if you're being invited to a location, well, chances are it probably had some negative, bad history. So right off the top, you know, maybe you're getting a heads up that this place isn't good. And now I've met some very talented psychic mediums who really astounded me, but I think we are all born, going back to the cave people days, with a survival instinct, and we just forgot how to pick that up. Like, is this danger? Should I, what is that, fight or flight?
Yeah.
And, you know, it's very important with paranormal investigators. And no, I mean, Bryan he's coming on board. He impressed me immensely, and I think it's just, you have to be humble, you have to be open, honest, but also protected.
Okay. Nice. So out of all of the evidence that you guys have captured, what is the one piece that still stands out in your mind as difficult, if not impossible, to explain?
Man, there's a lot. I would say, for me, it actually just happened, and I can't explain it, but I know that it had. So we were at Penhurst, and it was probably like, I don't know, what do you guys say, 55, 60 degrees, something like that outside?
Yeah,
like,
just about.
Yeah.
Like just cool enough that you could have either a sweatshirt or a t-shirt on, but definitely, you know, not cold. But every building that we would go into, we would be, you know, just investigating, and then all of a sudden everyone would feel the temperature drop, and then all of a sudden you could just see billows of your breath coming out.
That's wild.
I can't explain that. You know, I don't know what in the paranormal is causing that. But I do know that we experienced that at every single building that we went into. I think other than the industry building, which we were one of the first investigators to get to film in, which was really cool. But I would say that one is really one that I can't explain. And then the stone tape theory, that the apparition forming and walking, that to me is so far our wildest piece of evidence. Like, I think it's almost undeniably paranormal.
Yes.
Okay. So, what's the most compelling, intelligent response you've received during an investigation?
We have two. I can think of that right off the bat. Okay, so we were in an old Elks Lodge, which happened to be the former governor of Pennsylvania during the time of the Civil War. And we were in the main area. There's like a bar area there. And we had a spirit box, and we were asking, hey, there's actually a hidden third floor in this building, which was super creepy in its own right. But so anyway, we were saying the owners wanted to know, like, if anybody is up there, type of thing. So we were saying, hey, who's here or who lives on the 3rd floor? And we got the name Thomas Wilson, which meant nothing to us at the time. But as soon as we got out of the location, the next day we're reviewing evidence. That was the first thing that I started looking at because it was very clear a name. So then I was texting the owner of the Elks Lodge, and she was like, hold on, I'll have to look all this up. Well, I shit you not. They went back to the original deed, and the original deed was signed over by Thomas Wilson to the Elks Lodge from the governor. And so that one I think is irrefutable paranormal intelligence. And then the other one was we were at a place called the Old Stone Jail, and there's a story there that an inmate was going to be executed in like the late 1800s in the morning on like Sunday morning, and it was they went to go get him out of his cell, and when they went to go get him, he wasn't in there, and no one knows what happened to Smitty. So we were in there, and probably every other paranormal investigator that's ever been there has asked the same question. Hey, what happened to Smitty? And have you ever heard of a Phasma box?
Yes.
Okay, so we're using a Phasma box, which I personally don't believe in like apps or anything like that, but for some reason this computer generated software gives us the most intelligent responses. But anyway, so we said, hey, who killed Smitty? And we got the answer 2nd Brigade. Very clear. That didn't make sense at all. So we get home next day, same thing, do our evidence review, and I start looking up that. In that, we found out that during that time, only in the time that he was supposed to be executed, during like a 10-year period in that specific city in Pennsylvania, was a militia that went under the name 2nd Brigade that helped the Old Stone Jail with executions and riots and just other like so that's pretty profound coming out of a.
If anybody wants to watch these episodes, I'm telling you, we have captured some, like, okay, some people are going to say you guys are full of it, but we believe in the amount of time we've been doing this that we have captured some phenomenal evidence that skeptics are going to tear apart. That's what skeptics do. But before our evidence even goes out onto a video, we tear it apart personally. Because we've been doing this long enough now, we know, okay, they're going to go for this, they're going to go for that, and we try to debunk their arguments, really. It's like, well, then how the hell do you prove this? How do you prove that? So, yeah, exactly, Steve. I mean, we've captured some amazing things. Personally, I believe it's because of our attitude. We go in, we offer help. Hey, do you have a message you want to share? We're big and tough guys. We don't get scared, but they also know, wow, these guys seem legit. And I think that's one of the key aspects to this team is that they, maybe a spirit is trapped out there and says, these guys seem pretty cool. Instead of the yin yangs that come in and say, well, I challenge you to, come over here and scratch me. And, it could be a little grandma who says, why would I want to scratch you? So. Yeah.
I'm gonna add a caveat to that one is that we are respectful and we do ask for help. However, me personally, I'm still not 100%. I'll be honest, I'm probably not even 50% sure what the paranormal is. I still to this day don't know if I believe if it's some sort of demonic thing. I'm not sure if I believe in that. I'm not sure if I believe that it's people that have passed away, if it's a mixture of the two, if it's something else, if it's energy, because I know that I've felt negative energy. I know that I've felt positive energy. So when I go into these locations, I definitely am trying to find answers, but at the same time, I'm very guarded also. I make sure that I don't open myself up to a point that I think that something could possibly like attach or imprint on me because I've opened myself up too much. So that I think there's a fine balance between, like asking a spirit for help and protecting yourself,
So
yeah, and I think sorry, I was just
go ahead, Brian.
Jump in too and say what I thought one of the most compelling outside of what Steve's already listed, because those they're there, they're on tape, you can watch them, it's incredible. But when we actually got the opportunity to go back to this Elks Lodge that he was talking about with the Thomas Wilson story, and show the members our investigation. We got to do it one evening. Everyone came in and watched it, and in that same setting that Steve heard Thomas Wilson, these people were sitting around and watching it, and afterwards, in that setting, one of the other answers, it gave a couple of names aside from Thomas Wilson. And I just remember Steve coming up to me afterwards, and Steve, correct me on any of the details I'm getting wrong, but basically a member, an older member, started crying because of one of the other names that this spirit shared. And it was somebody that they knew that had passed on, who was also a member of the Elks Lodge at some point. Yep. So, I mean, that was like one of the first hard ones, like hard.
My hair stood up. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible.
Yeah. My wife is actually the one that put us onto that one. She was actually sitting right behind the woman, and she said that she caught it right away. She was like, as soon as it said, I think it might have been Rebecca. As soon as it said Rebecca, she said that the woman in front of her just lost it, because she said that sounded exactly like her voice, but it didn't sound like just distressed. And she said that she just cried emotionally, like, oh, wow, she's still around type of thing. That's amazing. And scary, and like,
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that would unnerve anybody. And you're right. We really don't know what the paranormal is. It could be the spirits of, people. It could be a hole torn in the fabric of reality by the CERN super collider, or it could be a total different alternate dimension versions of ourselves that are assholes. I mean, we just don't know what these things are. So that's why we investigate. So let me ask you, do you believe that certain locations that are considered haunted are haunted by the spirits of the deceased, or do you believe that trauma, history, and events have been imprinted on the location itself? Who wants to take that one?
So I think that it depends on the location. So I think that you have, I call them the Disneyland or Hollywood locations, that's like your Waverly Hills, Penhurst, those types of places. I think that there's been so many investigators that have been in there, and I think that, if you're open to it and you kind of put yourself out there, I think that whatever we're dealing with can kind of see that. And I think that if you just create a hub of where people can go and open up themselves spiritually, and then on top of that, all of the other dark stuff that has probably happened in there, not only from the time that the location was in operation, but then, your teenage kids that go out there and do occult stuff and, write pentagrams on the ground and open up portals without even knowing it. So I think that it's a mixture of like residual energy from the trauma that location experienced, the bullshit other people brought in there, and then maybe mixed in is some of the actual residents of the location. And I think that no one ever knows what they're dealing with. And I think that that's one of my biggest problems with the paranormal community, is that I don't know why it's like a who's John's bigger type thing, when people are like, they're very territorial and they're like, you're a terrible investigator because that's how you're supposed to do it. And I'm like, no one knows what we're doing. Everyone is guessing. There is not a single professional ghost hunter, because we're all just guessing.
Yeah, I could not agree more with what Steve just said. We've had some critique from people. A perfect example would be our Estes experiment. And Steve started to become creative with, well, let's switch this up a little bit. And I mean, we got like some, I wouldn't call it hate mail, but it was like, you guys are doing this all wrong. And it's like, well, I'm sorry, I didn't know there was a Paranormal U that was open, and sorry, I guess I was drunk during that class and just skipped it. So again, the big problem is you get into the egos from these other groups, and I've said it numerous times, this whole issue of para-unity, which I think the good-hearted investigators do practice that, and they're like, wow, good job, guys, that was amazing. But then there are other people that totally fucking pisses off, and they're like, oh, well, that's obviously bullshit, you know? And it's like, how can you say when I just saw some of your, you know, so-called evidence, and it was obviously a car going down the road and a shadow from a headlight, you know, and they're like, oh my God, did you see that? Or did you hear this? And, you know, so it's just, it gets so frustrating, but we just, you know, soldier on, we carry on. And our biggest thing as the GIs, we just want to be known as honest, reputable. We don't BS anything. And we've thrown out on many of our episodes, like, well, what do you guys think about this? You know, we're not claiming that it's absolute evidence. And, but yeah, that's what really, these guys are, Steve and Bryan are a little bit cooler headed than me in that. I had a very bad experience with a team several years ago, and it just is still, you know, it's still sticking with me. And yeah, so I don't know. We do what we do, and again, there's no, well, here's the guidebook to follow. This is how you do it. So
me personally, I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. I'm going and I'm doing what I enjoy to do, and I personally enjoy like the entertainment side of it, like putting it all together and then presenting it. And then I'm really only doing that as like for your entertainment. You can believe in it, you can not believe in it. I'm not trying to convince you. You know, it is what it is, and I'm not saying I know more than you. This is just what happened to me while I was at this place.
Yeah, it's what happened as we experienced it. So,
yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. So, Steve, let's say you enter the room where Bryan is, and you see him holding a cigarette underneath the camera so that the smoke appears to be mist of some entity, right? What do you do?
I would probably be pretty upset, and well, first, because I trust him so much, I probably wouldn't even think that that's what he's doing.
Right,
I wouldn't.
Right.
But if I did find out, that would probably be the last investigation that we would do together, type of thing.
Yeah.
I just think that integrity as a human being is the most important thing that you have. You know, at the end of the day, all you have is your word and you know, your integrity. So.
Absolutely. Well, terrific. All right, gents. Well, we're going to take a short break. So when we come back, we'll discuss their most intense investigation, equipment failures, unexplained voices, and their investigative style. You're listening to the Unholy Podcast.
The experiences discussed on the Unholy Podcast are not fiction. They are drawn from lived events. Doug's first-hand account of a sustained haunting as documented in the book, The Unholy Silence. The book details the investigation, the psychological toll, and the impact on his family, offering a deeper look at what happens when paranormal events move beyond theory and into daily life. The Unholy Silence is available worldwide through Amazon in paperback, hardback, and ebook formats. For those who want the full account, the story begins there. Visit author DougOwen.com for more.
The darkness doesn't care what time it is. But you should. When the shadows grow long and the investigation begins, trust the timepiece that's built to keep pace with every moment. Lorayo watches. Combine timeless style with dependable performance, making them the perfect companion, whether you're in the studio, on an investigation, or simply living life on your own terms. The mysteries of the unknown may never be solved, but you'll always know what time it is. Lorayo Watches, proud sponsor of the Unholy Podcast and the Unholy Broadcast. Author Doug Owen, the official ambassador for Lorayo Watches.
All right, welcome back to the Unholy Podcast. Tonight we're joined by Steve Mason, Keith Snyder, and Bryan Conyers, the Ghost Investigators. Now, I want to make a distinction. The Ghost Investigators. Not the Ghost Chasers, not the Ghost Facers. They are legitimate paranormal investigators who seek the truth about the paranormal world. Now, before the break, we discussed origins of the team. their investigative philosophy and evidence that continues to challenge their understanding of the paranormal. Now, gentlemen, let's go ahead and jump back in. So, here's the next question. Of all the locations you've investigated, which one would you each personally consider the most haunted? We'll start with Bryan.
For me, the most haunted of all the locations we went to together, I think from my experience, I'd probably say the Elks Lodge we went to. I mean, that was the first place I really had, and it's because of that kind of like my own like really feeling the experience. We were in the basement down there, searching for a spirit, and Keith was using an SLS device. Steve was out trying to communicate with something. I think we spooked it a little bit, and it, whatever was happening, what it felt like was something came rushing through me to run away. And I remember that was the first time I was really like, whoa, this is something. And after that happened in that same building, they were doing an Estes session, and the spirit called out my name, which had never happened before. So, I mean, I think I'm partial to that one just because of the experience. It was the first real hard experience for me. So that's my answer. Plus, I don't want to give the same answer as everybody else. So.
All right. Keith, what do you think?
My response would be the episode, the split episode between the Reynolds Mansion and then the carriage house. And I had a little bit of warning. The job I had at that time, I actually worked with a female who lived in the carriage house, and she was thrilled with when I would tell her stories, and she said, you guys need to get to the carriage house. Well, that's an adjacent property owned by the same owners of the Reynolds Mansion. And that place, the Reynolds Mansion, is great. Great energy. I mean, spirits willing to talk. We captured the we believe we captured evidence of the stone tape theory. So then we move over to the carriage house, which is this little unassuming looking property. And this is only the second time in all the years I've been doing this, I saw my investigative partner get attacked. Now, I knew immediately just by the look on his face. He looked at me and I said, I need to get this guy out of here. There is something bad in here. We also captured some pretty creepy, growl, yell noises, whatever. But I was forewarned. And as I'm trying to get Steve out of there, that place was equal to the experience the second time I was at Penhurst, where I actually saw somebody get physically attacked. And this guy is a former Marine, doesn't BS, doesn't do anything like that. And when he doubled over, I said, we need to get you out of here. So the most crazy place to me would be the carriage house, because, Steve doesn't joke. He doesn't make up things. And as quickly and as suddenly as his reaction hit, from my previous experience, I knew I had to get him the hell out of there. So that would be my vote.
Okay. All right. Steve?
The carriage house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the craziest part about the carriage house for me is that was the first and only time that I feel that I've actually been attacked. And I felt like I had a knife just get put through the middle of my head, and all of a sudden I wanted to projectile throw up everywhere. I felt terrible. And I immediately was like, I think I got to get out of here. But I even remember feeling like I don't even know how to get out of here. And then Keith kind of walked me outside, and then all I wanted, but what was crazy is as soon as I got outside, all I wanted to do was go back inside. And then Keith was like, no, man, just hang out here for a minute. And I was like, no, I'm not afraid of this thing. And like that's not smart, right? And I'm normally a lot smarter than that, but that's actually not even the craziest part, is that for the next week I was calling Keith and I was like, hey man, it's not going away, and whatever this thing is, and I couldn't even bring myself to pray. It was like my body would not allow me to even say the words, and I was very frightened at that. I was like, holy cow, how do you beat something that won't even allow you to express your own feelings? So the carriage house is going down for me as I don't really want to go back there, but yeah.
All right. So, do you guys believe that shadow figures are the spirits of the deceased, something else entirely, or are they one of the greatest mysteries still in the paranormal field that we might never know what they are? What are your thoughts?
So here's what I believe. So this is going to get a little crazy maybe for some, but if you go all the way back into the CIA's project of the Stargate, where they were using astro projection to go try to spy on people, one of the things that was reported by every single person that went under was that when they went into this, that their soul left their body or whatever they were claiming, and they were able to travel around the earth, that what people claim to be shadow people and haunted locations is what they saw roaming throughout this other dimension while they were going. So I think that shadow people are not living people or former living people. I think that they are some sort of interdimensional being that are able to come into our realm to show themselves for a minute and then dart out. And I also believe that that's what like the Hat Man is that people see. That's just my own theory on it. I could be absolutely wrong, but I'm just kind of like pairing my thoughts with documented proof from the CIA's projects and then making my own assumptions.
Okay. Brian?
And Doug, if I can just interject quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I totally agree with Steve's input on that. And if you look at like these shadow figures, it goes back thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And again, you brought up something interesting a while ago about possibly interdimensional travel. This could be time travelers coming back, and because of their cloaking device or whatever, they appear as shadows. I only saw one, I wouldn't even call it a shadow figure. It was at Penhurst, and it was like crawling along the floor, and was witnessed by another investigator. And I was like, what was that? And we just looked at each other and shrugged our shoulders. So again, I think it goes back to the whole investigative arena where we have no idea. It could be interdimensional. And a perfect example of that would be throughout recorded history, where people have reported that I just turned around, I walked down this hallway, came around a door and saw somebody in period dress from 1700s, and they just whipped their head and stared at me like, who are you? And I had the same exact expression on my face. So that tells me possibly it could be interdimensional, because maybe that shadow or that curtain was pulled away for a split second. But this is the intrigue for me, the exploration and trying to get some actual evidence of, hey, this is what we captured. What's everybody think?
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. That's great. Brian?
Yeah, I think my answer to which one of those it is yes. I have no idea. I think it could be any of those. I haven't myself experienced in person. I haven't seen a shadow figure in any of the investigations that I've done. I've seen them on the cameras that we have, when we do our review. I know at the Baker Mansion, we believe we caught a shadow figure, but I haven't seen one in person. I don't know that I want to, honestly, but we'll see how time goes.
No, absolutely. They can be absolutely terrifying, and that's one of those things. Fear, right? Has there been a moment where you were in a location where you were genuinely terrified and either fled or you wanted to flee?
Yes. For me, I wouldn't say that I was genuinely terrified, but I would say that I was unaware of what was happening enough to know that it was time to go. And so it was at a place called Titan Hollow, and Keith and I were investigating there, and we heard a growl, an audible growl that came from this back corner. But I remember that the entire atmosphere got darker than, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. It like got darker than dark. The energy felt bad. We heard a growl, and I just felt with every fiber of my being like, it's time to go. So that would be my answer.
Okay. All right.
For me, Doug, even before I was a member of the GIs, I had a pretty crazy experience at the Moundsville prison in West Virginia. And one of the tenets of investigating I was always taught was you never show fear, you just keep it nice and simple. And that has always stuck with me. It worked with me that night for a particular incident, which I won't even get into. But I went, with me personally, I would not call it fear. I just call it like, okay, it's time to tap out of here, which Steve and I say all the time, knowing that you're feeling something, that this is different. And I believe that the smart investigators know it's like, listen, we just maybe came across a different kind of energy, and it's time to get out of here to make sure we're safe. And there was one particular investigation in our local town where we were going to begin an investigation, and I told Steve, I said, I'm out of here. Something is off. And I can tell you this, Doug, out of all the years I've been doing this, I had a 10-12 minute drive home, and literally I had to turn around while I was driving because I felt like somebody was sitting behind me, and that never happened. And I went with my gut, and I think the more you investigate, you come up with your gut feelings, and you should go with them. That, you know, that's your smart side. That's telling you, man, you need to get out of here now.
Yeah, and I think that the three of us trust each other so much that, you know, if Keith is like, hey, it's time to go, I won't even question it. All right, man, it's time to go. You're, even if I'm not feeling it, because that night I had not felt what he had felt, but I could see his reaction, and I was like, yeah, no, let's wrap it up. Something's not right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and for me, the biggest thing feeling like that was and it's something that we're working on now, and it's an episode that actually comes out on Friday. I don't know if this podcast will be out by then, but so I'm not going to get too detailed on the storyline, but about what happened. But we were at Penhurst, and we were in the basement of Mayflower, and we were, you know, trying to interact with the entity known as the King, and things got pretty interesting down there. And it almost kind of snowballed. It was just sort of like, okay, this is happening. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, this is also happening at the same time. That's kind of crazy. And then another thing on top of that. And there got to a point where Steve was even just like, are you all right, man? And that was pretty much it for me. That was like the biggest, scariest moment, was like, why, what's going on? Is something wrong with me? And that's as much detail as I want to get into, because like I said, if you want to find out, go watch our Penhurst.
All right, gents. So where can listeners and viewers find your videos, social media pages, and upcoming investigations?
You can find us on YouTube. If you search GIs, the Ghost Investigators will come up. If you Google GIs Investigators will come up. Also on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. Like I said, it's GIs, the Ghost Investigators. That's the best way. If you just do the Ghost Investigators, you'll probably get some other Ghost Investigators too. But
Okay.
GIs, the Ghost Investigators, search that and you will find us.
All
I'll kind of tell you where the GIs thing came from too, because I don't know, I think it's really cool.
Sure.
So because we're a military team, it's like paying homage to government issue and ghost investigators. So we go by the GIs.
Nice. Well, that's fantastic. And gentlemen, let me just say, I want to thank you for your service to this country. We certainly all appreciate you guys, your sacrifice, and sincerely, thank you so very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both. Thank you both.
Now we've reached the unholy fire. My favorite part of the show. This is the rapid fire round. One word answers. First thing that pops in your mind. Any word that pops into your mind here. I'll ask you guys 10 rapid fire questions. No explanations, no stories. One words if you got it. I like that. I love that t-shirt. That is amazing. That is great. All right, are you guys ready?
Let's do it.
I guess the order, we'll go Steve, Bryan, Keith. How's that sound? All right, here we go. Ghost or demon?
Demon.
All right. Bryan?
Ghost.
Keith?
Ghost.
EVP or spirit box? Steve?
Spirit box.
Spirit box.
EVP.
Most haunted state?
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it's pretty haunted. Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
Okay. Cemetery or abandoned hospital?
Hospital.
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 Shadow figure or apparition?
Apparition.
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 Ouija board?
No.
No.
9.
One piece of equipment you couldn't live without?
Spirit box.
My camera.
Phasma box.
Scariest paranormal movie?
Conjuring.
Conjuring or The Exorcist? I'm gonna say The Exorcist.
The Ring.
Skeptic or believer?
Skeptic.
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 Life after death?
Unsure.
Yeah, skeptic.
Yes.
Okay. You guys have absolutely made it through the unholy fire. Now, some people try to cheat, but you guys did it amazingly. So, Steve Mason, Keith Snyder, Bryan Conyers, you guys are the ghost investigators. Thank you so much for spending time with me tonight and sharing all of the experiences here. So, a heartfelt thank you guys for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
A heartfelt thank you from us too, Doug. Thanks for having
Thanks,
us.
Doug. This is great.
Thank you,
for having
Doug.
me.
My pleasure.
This was great, man.
My pleasure.
We want to meet you someday,
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. And 1 hour just isn't long enough. So in the future, I'd love to have you guys back on the show. Get it out there, check with you guys in the fall when spooky season comes, and chat about that. So for all of those people out there listening, if you like to follow the Ghost Investigators and see their latest investigations, be sure to check out their YouTube channel and social media platforms. And if you're enjoying the Unholy podcast, please take a moment, subscribe, follow, leave a review, share it with somebody you like, share it with somebody you don't like. If anybody enjoys the strange, the mysterious, absolutely subscribe to that. You can learn more about me, my investigations, upcoming appearances, my book, The Unholy Silence, by visiting author DougOwen.com. I'll also be appearing at DarknessCon Boise on July 11th, where I'll be hosting my panel, Unholy Encounters, The Silence Between the Shadows. Stop by, say hello, grab a signed copy of my book, and, visit with me for a while. We'll talk about some things. I'm sure I've got a story that will scare you. So, as I always say, dear viewers, dear listeners, until next time, stay safe, be aware, and beware, because sometimes the silence is the most terrifying thing.
You've just heard another chilling chapter of the Unholy podcast, hosted by Doug Owen, author, investigator and witness to the things most feared to name. For more real stories, cursed objects, and exclusive content, step deeper into the dark at authorDougOwen.com. Subscribe, share, and remember, some silences aren't empty, they're waiting.